Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Robert Baharian and this is Masters in Investing. They say life never stops teaching and we never stop learning. This show is my exploration with investors to both understand and unpack what is going on in markets right now and what this means for business and for investors. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us an awesome review. Let's get into it. My guest today is Debbie Baharian, and some of you probably guessed it, Debbie is my wife. During our conversation today, we talk about and try and understand what is the ultimate investment. We talk about attachments, we talk about beliefs and pursuits, spend a bit of time talking about legacy, what that means, what financial legacy means. We also talk about freedom and how we struggle to distinguish freedom and financial freedom as human beings. Debbie sprung a 90-second meditation during our conversation on me, which was really interesting, and also found out that I think Debbie wants us to sell everything, move to the mountains and live in a hut. Although I much prefer a nice big house in the mountains. I'm super up for that. Don't know about a hut, but listen in. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Testing.
If I cough, can I cough like this or better out there?
Maybe just like turn away from the microphone and cough.
Okay. You know how you like need to cough and then no, you don't need to cough, but then you think about it and then you need to?
Yeah. It's like when you can't have something, you want it.
It's like you see someone have a sip of water and then you want to have one.
All right. I think we're good to go. We're running this?
Yeah, go.
Let's do it. Debbie Baharian, welcome back to Masters in Investing.
Thanks, Robert Baharian, for having me.
Awesome. So last season 1, we finished off with a Tao of Wealth, and it was probably the highest listened to episode on Masters in Investing. So I thought it'd be really cool if we did Season 2 and finish Season 2 off with the Tao of Wealth version 2.0. And over the course of the last 10 weeks or so, I've been talking to a whole bunch of people about money and wealth and investing and what's going on in the world and what people should be doing and how people should be allocating their money, what the Reserve Bank of Australia are doing, what the Federal Reserve Bank of the US are doing, what's going on in Argentina and cryptocurrency, etc. But I think it's all in the pursuit of, the ultimate investment. And people pursue that, I think, every single day of the week, constantly looking for what is that thing that I should be investing in. And I think a lot of us think about it as like a monetary thing when we talk about investing. But then you've got a school of thought that says, well, you need to invest in yourself and maybe a combination of those things. So, a question for you then, if we're talking about end of Season 2 for Masters in Investing and the ultimate investment, how do you interpret that? What does the ultimate investment mean to you?
Look, for me, the ultimate investment is something that is within all of us, that has been with us since the day we were born. You could even say the day we were conceived. And it's this thing that, there's many names for it, but I'm going to call it energy or power today. But you can call it the life force energy, you can call it your soul or, but to make it simple, we're going to just call it energy or power. And from day one, it's always been within us. And throughout our lives, this power, this energy, and, I would be careful with using the word power because power can be associated with external things like, people, there's a lot of power in money and fame and fortune and things like that. And that's not what I'm referring to at all. It is the power that is within us, in our hearts, in our essence. And it is something that we have. So when we're born, it's pure, it's whole. Have you ever looked at a baby and automatically you just love it? You feel drawn to the baby.
Why is that? Why are we drawn to babies?
Why do you think? Like, you tell me, Robert, before we even had kids.
This is my podcast, not yours.
I'm just sharing with your listeners, before we had kids, you would walk across the road to say hi to a baby.
Yeah, and you'd think I was a weirdo.
I thought you were a weirdo. I'm like, oh my God, stop being a pedophile. But tell me, what was it that drew you to the children, to the babies?
I don't know, just their pureness, their pure innocence, their just, I don't know, maybe like, you might say sort of carefree nature. They're like, you're just drawn to, I don't know, maybe are you drawn to things that you want to be, maybe? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know how you're attracted to certain people or certain things because maybe that's how you want to be.
Yeah.
And so maybe we're attracted to things that we want to be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I was attracted to kids and babies.
Maybe, but I really like what you said about them being pure and carefree. And
yeah, but they are, aren't they?
Yeah, and along the way somehow that goes. So it's like over the years, it seems like when you talk to adults, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like to all adults, do you feel drawn to them in that same way? Do you sense their essence as such?
Yeah, and it's either attractive or unattractive.
Yeah, but whereas children, you don't see them being attractive or unattractive. They're just beautiful.
At a certain age, they can become unattractive.
Yeah, exactly. So what is it that makes it like that? So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about their energy, their essence. So along the way, how that starts going is when you were born with that same essence. All babies are born with that essence. So along the way, you start giving away your energy. You start giving away your power, essentially. And you give away your power. So
is that essence power? Like
it's the same.
power.
Well, there's another word, essence, energy, power, whatever you want to call it. I just cover the same thing. Okay. So I'll probably say essence a lot. I like the word essence. Yeah, whatever. But you guys know what I mean. So along the way, this power, this essence, gets taken away because you give it. So as you grow up, you start learning things about life from your parents, from your external circumstances, from your friends, from teachers, from social media these days, and you give away what you believe to be true within you, your heart, your soul, your essence. You give it to these beliefs and these...
As in you give into the beliefs?
You give into the beliefs, but you give your energy to that. So you may, when you're growing up, for example, if you were to have, like, say, a parent who was unwell, who was weak, and you felt like you had to help them, you have this full essence to help them. So you start giving your essence to them, thinking that if you gave it to them, then they would be better. And so that's part of your essence has already been given to them from a child. So you're already depleting yourself from that age. So as you grow older, there's more and more, like in our core essence, in all of our essences, we just want to help others, we want to contribute, we want to love. So we see people who are suffering and we see them on the street and we give them some of our essence because we're like, oh, I want them to feel better, I want them to be happy. So then that depletes you more. And then you go into like older and older, and then you start getting these beliefs of, well, the society wants me to be successful, to have a family, to have a nice house, and that's just the way of society. That's what I'm expected to do. So you start giving some of your essence to that. Whereas in your heart, you're just happy just being you. You don't need all this stuff. It's like...
But what about being you is wanting to help people?
Yeah, if being you is wanting to help people, then great. That is you.
Are you saying there's a distinction between doing it from a genuine place of wanting to help versus feeling like that's what you have to do because that's what's expected of you to do?
Yeah, I think we all have a genuine place in our hearts to want to help. I think that's love is just a part of our essence, truly, naturally. And if we make it a burden or an expectation or an obligation of ourselves to want to change something, then it takes your power away from you, where you give your power to that person or that situation, and then that's what depletes you. And that ultimately...
And how does it deplete you?
So it depletes you because it's energy. It's hard to explain. Everything is made up of energy. So you have come into this world with this full energy, and you slowly start taking it, you start giving it away, and that depletes you and causes you to get ill, or it can cause you to be really stressed, anxious, and it ages you as well. And we spoke about this. You know, have you ever met people who are elderly, yet they've got this vibrancy? You can feel their youth coming through them.
I told you I watched the David Attenborough documentary.
Yeah. Yep.
And the guy's like 93 years old.
Yeah.
He looks 70.
Yeah.
He looks younger than that.
Yeah.
93. But, yeah, I mean, that's just an example of...
So that's an example. It's like they haven't given away their essence, or they've given away their essence somewhere along the line, but they learned how to bring it back.
And how do you do that?
And you can do that by being aware.
Of what?
Being aware of the things, and this is a practice for everyone, being aware of what influences you and what you allow to influence you. So who and what. It can be a situation, it can be a thing, it can be people. So, for example, like I was walking, I rarely come into the city, but I was walking through...
But you came into the city for this podcast.
I came in for you. So I was walking past all of the expensive clothing shops. I'm not into that stuff at all, but I was looking at the Dior bags, which are probably like thousands of dollars, and like people get attached to this stuff. They want it so badly, and that takes away so much of their essence, and it's only for a bag. And the end of your life, are you really going to look back and go, I wish I could afford to buy that bag, or I wish I could have bought that big house, or whatever it is? Is that really true? So you've got to actually look at yourself and be true to yourself and be honest with yourself when you look at this stuff, when you think about yourself. And yeah, sometimes that we see some things that we don't like about ourselves. You know, like we don't want to be seen as somebody who only likes material things. Like nobody likes that. But
why do we
may
know,
be the truth.
Why do we know that but don't know that? So why do we don't want to be that person, but we can't see ourselves when we are that person? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. It's attachment. It's when we're attached to something, then we're not going to see any other way. So you've got to step back from yourself and actually look at your attachments to see what you're attached to, and be open to everything else. Like you can be attached to an idea, you know, and then you can be like, well, I'm right, and nobody who can ever say anything will go against that, and I'll never change my mind because I'm right.
That's stubbornness.
That's stubbornness, and that also takes so much energy. Like, okay,
yeah,
well,
I 100% agree.
Yeah, but that's what I agree.
It's draining.
That's what I think.
It's like constantly draining.
Exactly, and you're constantly fighting for your beliefs, for righteousness. But really, you're not going to change anyone else's mind, and nobody else is going to change your mind. So just let it go.
What do you mean, let it go?
Like, just But
what if there are things that are totally unacceptable?
Yeah, but that's only in your perception that it's unacceptable. So that's the other thing. It's very challenging to constantly be going, well, the world looks like a dangerous place. The world is falling down around me.
But don't you think there are things that happen around the world that are unacceptable? Or is that your belief and my belief that thing or those 5 things are unacceptable?
You've got to think about it. Is it unacceptable to you? So you need to think about it's unacceptable only to you in your perception and your experience. And look at it and think, well, why is it unacceptable to me? What in my history has made it unacceptable? What have I learnt that has made it unacceptable? And in order to change that, we just need to be open to all ideas. And when that happens, then you just get, you see the light, you see the truth.
So how do you become... How do you distinguish between what is reality and what is your belief? Or are they the same thing?
Well, you believe in your own reality. So the thing is that none of this is real. None of this is reality. Because it's only our minds that make us think it's reality.
Because it's our belief.
Because it's our belief and it's our experience of life that makes us believe this.
And so our beliefs and our experience is our reality. Like, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so my reality is not necessarily your reality. Although at times we could share the same beliefs and perceptions and realities, but it's to the extent that is our belief and our perception on something.
Yeah, I'll give you a very simple example. It's like if we were to go out for lunch together and we both got the same meal, exactly the same everything, we'd both have totally different experiences. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So that's with everything. Every small thing.
And so how do people then distinguish, going back to I think my original question, how do people distinguish between their beliefs and what they perceive to be reality?
That's a deep question that I could go on for 3 hours about, but it's everything that you think are your beliefs. So even the things that I say, these come from my beliefs and my experiences. You know in your heart, in your essence, in your core, what your truth is, and it is nothing to do with the mind. It's nothing to do with what you have on the external world at all.
What are you saying? Like it's in us that intuitively we know the answer to stuff?
Intuitively, you know the answer to everything. And it's not for me to tell you this.
And why do people come talk to me and get help and advice? Why do people go see other people for help and advice if they have the answer to everything within themselves?
Yeah. You are really good at what you do. So in your meetings with people, how much of that is to do with money?
To start with, a lot of it has to do with money because most people come in to conversation with us thinking that the conversation's about money until you have the conversation and go down a path of understanding more about not so much their balance sheet but their life. And then I think most people then connect the dots and go, like there's an aha moment of, I see where you're going with this. And no, it's not about the money. The money is a mechanism or a tool that helps people do stuff. But then there's also an argument to say that people say money is freedom. I saw someone post something, money is freedom. What do you think about that? Money is freedom. Why do I have to have money to be free? Who tells me that I have to have money to be free? Why have we created this belief that we need financial independence and financial freedom? Like, why are we digging that hole?
That's a really interesting question because I really believe that we need freedom from money, but not necessarily money cannot give us freedom ultimately. It's the attachment that we were talking about. It is how much energy you give to money. And my God, the world gives so much energy to money and material things. And none of that really matters. Like if once you actually realize this, once you actually remove your attachment to money and the external gain, then you'll achieve ultimate freedom. And from ultimate freedom, you'll realize you have access to all the money in the universe. Whatever you want, you can get.
What do you mean by that? Like what?
You have access to it. And then you can get whatever you want. But from that place, because you're so free from it, you don't want it. It doesn't matter anymore. All
right.
So let me go back to my question for you. What do people ultimately want when they come and see you?
Ultimately, they just want happiness. Like I think most people are just trying to recall a situation where that hasn't been. Sometimes they don't want to admit it, but ultimately it's just this free from anxiety. It's almost calm, a level of calm and happiness. And I think that's the freedom. And so, for some reason, we've attached the word financial in front of that. Or financial independence or financial freedom. Like, I don't know why we attach this financial component to the freedom, but I think people want calm. People want to be free of anxiety and people want happiness, ultimately. And people want joy.
Yeah.
And people want to do shit they love doing. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's why your service is so important, because people ultimately are going to have their attachments, and day-to-day people, it's going to be hard for them to remove their attachments. So if they're always depleting their energy to being attached to money, then instead of depleting it to their energy and doing it themselves, they can hand that over to you. And if they hand over that that energy of money to you, then they can take something off their plate. You know, they can take that layer off, the burden off.
Everyone just dumps their shit on us.
Exactly. So, like, what you're doing is amazing for everyone, where you're actually, like, you're changing the landscape of money and how people see money, I think, which is really important.
One of the other things that I've been seeing a lot of sort of, you know, on social media posts and stuff is about legacy, like especially finance. Like people talk about financial legacy, and I want to leave a legacy for this and legacy for that. Like, do you think that that comes from a place of ego around, well, look what I did, look at the legacy that I left? Like, why is it important to you if you, like, you're not even here to see what it is that you've created? What's behind the motive behind legacy? Or is it not so much driven by that, rather driven by a genuine desire to be able to help your children or grandchildren or whatever the case may be? What do you think about that? What do you think about this pursuit of legacy?
Well, this can also be different for every single person that is pursuing a legacy. But let me ask you, why do you want to leave those things for your children?
Why do I want to leave the things for my children? I think I used to think about a lot of this stuff from, like, driven by my ego around, well, look what I've created and what I've been able to do and all that stuff. But I think more and more, especially lately, like, I feel like I don't care about a lot of that stuff about what I've created and look what I did and whatever. Like, I'm far more aware of it now than I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago about these things that I wanted to do. But if I think about it for my kids, it's more around giving them opportunity and giving them options and putting them in the best position that I can with what I do now, and that makes me happy. So going back to before about what do people ultimately want, it's about happiness, free my anxiety, bring me joy, and do the things that put a smile on my face and give me memories. Like, ultimately, that's, I think, what people want to be able to do, and that takes lots of shapes and forms for different people. And for me, one of the biggest things is that's what drives the legacy, is putting my kids in a situation where they've got more options.
And that, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but...
Yeah, thanks.
That is a really good example, because what you talk about is your happiness, your own happiness.
So am I selfish?
So what I'm saying is, at the end of your life, will the kids really care how much you leave for them, really? Or will they care about growing up, their memories and your connection with them and the love that you had for them? What are they going to think? Like, okay, so when you die, when Dad died, he left us, $1 million.
Yeah, but it's not binary. Like, you don't have to have one or the other.
No, you don't have to have one or the other, but what is the focus? What is the reason for you to work hard and build this legacy? So you need to look at that. And when you actually think about it, yeah, in 3 generations' time, nobody is going to remember you, but what you're giving to them, if you spend your life loving them, being present with them, what you're giving to them is this love that they will never get from anyone else, that they will never forget. And that love will then transfer to their children, and then that love will then transfer to their children, and that is a legacy. So you can leave a legacy of buildings and businesses, but what is more important than love?
But again, you don't have to have, it's not a binary outcome. You don't have to, you can have both. You can still do those things at the same time being present and being loving and feeling loved and leaving memories and all those things. You can still do that,
Of course you can still do both, but if it doesn't happen, that's the problem.
What do you mean if it doesn't happen?
People are attached to it. So they can be attached to, okay, well, I want to be present and I want to love my children, but at the same time, I want to build this legacy, so I'm also going to be attached to that. So then they can get attached to it, and then if it doesn't happen, that's when the suffering occurs.
What doesn't happen? Like
if they're not able to build
success.
this legacy and have this money. But if you have love and presence, what more can you want? What more is important? Mm-hmm. If you can be there sitting in, like, you know, even if you lived in a hut in the mountains, and if you can sit there and
I'd love to live in a hut in the mountains.
Oh, my God, me too. But if
so why don't we do that? Like, why are we even here?
Why are you even here? I've been telling you this for months. But, yeah, so if you can just
because then you have to drive the kids to school from the mountains.
If you can be in the hut and sit there in this small hut and sit there and be at peace, that is priceless.
What the fuck are we all doing? Why? I'm serious.
Let's shut this off and go.
No,
Sell
I'm serious.
and go.
Why do... And people have done that. And people call them crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
People say they're absolute morons and idiots for selling it.
I don't think so many people are going to call them morons and idiots because the world is changing.
Yeah, but people have, and a lot of people have done this, and a lot of people have made big social media profiles about this, and people gravitate towards that. And, you know, these people get sponsorships and they, you know, and the funny thing is the money then flows to them.
Exactly.
And it's like, that was never the game plan. The game plan was never to do this in the pursuit of money. It was in the pursuit of ultimate freedom, which has absolutely nothing to do with finance. It's not financial freedom.
No. And, you know, money is a part of our world, just like everything else is. And it shouldn't be put on a pedestal. It shouldn't be more important than anything else because everything is the same.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I still feel like you can still have the two things if you are doing them from a place that is not motivated and driven by a financial outcome.
But again, I'm going to go back to, what does it matter whether you have that thing or not?
Because I don't know, maybe I don't want to live in a hut, maybe I want to live in a nice house in the mountains.
That's your own attachment then, isn't it?
Yeah. So what? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with me wanting a nice house in the mountains?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. But you just need to have a look at your own attachments, and that's what energy you're giving up from yourself to...
To who? To who? Or just giving up to...
giving up to this thing, this idea, this thing that doesn't exist. You know, like one of the greatest illusions is giving your energy to the future. You know, you and I, before we got married, we used to say, in the future, we're going to do this. And then the future came, and then we're like, oh, well, we'll have a momentary moment of happiness, and then after that, everything just went back again. So it's like, well, what next? And that's what we attach to and we drive ourselves with, this idea of future that never comes, because all we have is now.
Yeah. And I guess to what end, right?
Yeah.
Like even before... I think you were saying, I said, so what are we going to talk about? And you said, just stop living in the future and we'll just talk about it. Mm. And so why do we then plan for a lot of these things? Like why do we plan for the thing that we're going to do, or that holiday, or the house upgrade, or these things? What are you saying? We shouldn't be planning for these things?
It's funny, I was listening to a podcast today and they were saying that there are two realities. One is love and one is fear. So either you come from love or you come from fear. So when you're doing the planning and the pursuing and whatever, that all comes from fear. And I know that fear is a big word for a lot of people. They're like, well, I'm not scared of anything. What are you talking about? But ultimately you can be scared of losing the things that you've worked for. You can be scared of success. You can be scared of failure. You can be scared of, you know, every small thing. You can be scared of walking outside and something happening to you, like bad things happening even, like just there is no peace. So in order to let go of this stuff, it's just to look in yourself. You look at yourself and look at, well, what are my fears? What am I, you know, why am I doing this? What drives me? Mm-hmm. And we all under this illusion that, you know, we all have great intentions, all of us. We all want to do things for love. We all want to do things because we want to be happy, and that is amazing. but we need to look at the truth of it and think about, well, what is it that I grew up with that makes me do this, and how is that affecting others? And it really will take a good, hard look at yourself by journaling, meditating, whatever it is, reflecting. But yeah, it's all well and good to say, no, keep listening to things and reading things and you'll get it, but you won't. You need to look at yourself.
I was just thinking about when we were talking before about just selling everything and, living in the mountains and whatever.
That's not a joke, I'm serious.
All right, we'll talk about that later. But what about when you get to a point, I talk to a lot of people that are of an age where, kids are all grown up and, I don't know, they're working because, they do they're in a position where they can do stuff they want to do. I don't know, they go play golf and, I don't know, travel and whatever. But a lot of people also still want to continue to do stuff like working or volunteering their time or their expertise or just doing stuff, right? Or setting up their own business or, I don't know, developing a few properties or whatever, right? They just do stuff, whether it's consulting or working. If they weren't doing these things, I mean, I'm not in that situation. You're not in that situation. So it's hard for us to try and put ourselves in their shoes, but they get bored and they're like, well, there's nothing, what am I going to do? And so they do these things. So again, is that coming from a place of your motive and driver is something else beyond kind of this money? Is that the distinction there? Maybe as I'm speaking and as I'm explaining this, it's starting to make a bit more sense to me, but what's wrong with that? What's wrong with doing that thing?
Well,
am I making sense?
You actually remind me of another greatest fear of, actually most of my clients have this fear of doing nothing. So many people, they're worked all their lives doing their entire life. And I'm like, I have clients and I'm like, you're at this age now where the job is done. It's time now.
What job?
To let go. Your work
right.
is done. You've raised your kids. You've done your career.
So then what? Die?
It's time to
what?
Live. It's time to live, not die, to live. So life is the noun, but the verb of life is live. We're all living life, but are we really living? And if we let go of all the doing, what's left? And that's fearful for a lot of people because what's left can be really empty. They can feel this emptiness, this silence. And
why is that empty?
Well, now what?
Why are they empty?
Well, I want to flip that and go, well, it's not actually empty, it's spaciousness. Where your whole life you've filled yourself up with stuff. You filled yourself up with your...
Like clutter.
Yeah.
Like in a house.
Yeah, exactly. Like your schedule. You filled yourself up with activities and blah, 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 blah. And then finally you stop. And in that moment of stopping, you freak out because you finally sense this spaciousness that's there. And that spaciousness is like, well, what is that? That's this darkness, this emptiness, this, I don't like it, I need more stuff. So then you start doing
because
more.
You're used to doing it over the last 30 years or whatever?
Yeah, yep. So my advice to those clients is just sit in the spaciousness, to be empty, to do nothing, and to sit there. And if it feels uncomfortable, then good. Feel the discomfort until the discomfort goes and you realise, oh my gosh, I love this, I need this, my soul yearns for this. There's a fine balance between doing and doing nothing. There's actually no such thing.
No such thing as what?
In the Tao, actually, there's a quote. You have to find peace, you need to find the inaction in the action and the action in the inaction.
I understand.
So they cancel each other out. And without those things, without action and inaction, but at the same time there's action, what part do you play? And that's where the ego comes into play, because the ego is like, well, I want to be involved in this. What do I need to do? And or do I need to create? But it's like, well, you don't need to play part in any of this. You just need to enjoy it and live and watch everything happen. And that's all that's all there is. It's very simple, but we make it so complicated.
So what's the ultimate investment then?
Well, the ultimate investment is to look at yourself, is this energy that you have within you, this life force energy, this essence, this power, whatever it is you want to call it, you have that. So don't give it up for anything else or any situation or anyone else. Hold it for yourself. And, you and I, a few years ago, we spent our last $10,000 on this event, on this personal development event.
We went to Tony Robbins.
Yeah, so we spent our last $10,000 on it, but it was the best investment. Like I would say that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that.
100%.
100%.
Agreed.
So that had nothing to do with money for us. It was literally all the energy, right?
What do you mean?
So it's like you're investing in yourself, in your energy, in your heart, in your soul, in your essence. And it's not even investing the money in it. It's like you're investing your time, you're investing your effort, you're investing your own, these days I used to be one that, every 15 minutes would be accounted for. These days I'll spend hours just walking in the bush, and that is my investment to myself. And when you do that, then things start dropping away that you thought mattered, that those things that you used to want, all of a sudden you're like, well, that's not really what I want anymore. And that's when the shift happens. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that you're like, you have an awakening, enlightening experience and you're like, oh my God, I'm enlightened now and I'm in bliss and whatever. It's not like that at all. It's slow and it takes time. And time heals all wounds as well. So a lot of clients come to me with really traumatic histories, deep pain from the past. And a lot of the time you can have something bad happen to you, say, somebody betrayed you or someone hurt you in the past, and you can spend years dwelling on that. But that is you giving up your energy to that person and that situation. That person probably 30 years ago forgot about you, doesn't even know who you are anymore. But you are still holding on to this.
Why do we hold on to stuff? Like even small examples of things that go wrong. We hold on to it, I don't know, scratch the car or got a parking ticket or, just stuff that kind of doesn't even matter. But we hold on to it, we dwell on it, you get a headache, it ruins your day. Like what? Why is that?
Well, it's usually because you need to learn something from it. The universe is teaching you something, and a lot of the time we don't take the time to slow down and think about, well, what is it that I'm actually learning from this? And in that case, then it will come back again. The lesson will come back. So then you'll never forget it. So when I move through these deep healings with clients, they'll come through a traumatic event and then they'll look at it again and they'll be like, oh, well, it's sort of like a distant memory, like a movie, but it feels like it's not there anymore. And that's where you want to go. That's the place you want to be at, where like it happened to you, but it doesn't define you. So, you can say that about everything. You can say that about money. Money is there for me, but it doesn't define me.
I just thought about the example about, someone at the end of their career, for example, who, I've spoken to a lot of people who, after they retire and they get bored and they go do something in their area of expertise or experience, and they start making even more money than they had while they were pursuing it and pushing it, right?
Yeah.
Could it be at all possible that doing what you did in the prior years allowed you to get to that spot and allowed you to be in that position?
Yes. Everything that you ever do, everything that is done in this moment actually impacts everything that's going to happen in the future. So, no choice is ever wrong. Nothing you ever do is the wrong thing to do.
Why do we teach our kids that that's wrong and that's right? And you're saying that there's never a wrong choice?
Do we teach them that's wrong and that's right?
I'm not saying we do. I'm saying we as people and as human beings.
Yeah, right and wrong are also beliefs. You know, we believe that it's wrong to steal and it's, you know, it's right.
It's pretty unfair by stealing.
And that's your belief. So it's like, well, I'm sure that 99% of the population will agree with me that they will agree with you that it's wrong to steal. But I have this belief that we all have this intention of love within us. So that person that stole, you know, they have an intention of love. They didn't do it because they, you know, I don't know, that they hate the world and they want the world to fall down or whatever. They did it for a reason, and that reason comes from love. And maybe it's a diluted version of love, but it's still love. So when that person steals from that shop or whatever, then that shop learnt a lesson, and like it's all part of the universe that we cannot possibly understand why everything happens and what happens, and it's not for us to try and predict what happens because that's all fear as well. So we just need to step back and just allow for whatever needs to happen.
What else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. What would you like to know?
Well, I wanted to talk about legacy. I wanted to talk about the ultimate investment. One of the other things we talked about last time was, I guess I'm curious, since we spoke last time about this, about what people's or what our purposes are and why we do things, and you know what motivates us and what drives us and things like that. And you know, do you have a different point of view on people searching for their purpose around why they're here? Like, has that evolved your thinking or your opinion on that since we spoke about it last time?
I can't remember what I said last time.
You were saying something along the lines of most people don't know what their purpose is, and they spend their entire life trying to actively find it when more often than not they're probably just in their everyday life living their purpose, and what they're meant to do is happening.
Yeah.
Versus you know, sort of sitting there on a beach journaling and, you know, the penny drops and like, that's my purpose.
Yeah.
But I mean, isn't that then your opinion of what, you know, is it, oh, that's convenient, I like that, so that's my purpose and I'm here to do this.
Yeah.
And is it, I mean, that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But then again, how do you know that that's what you're here to do, or why you're doing something?
Well, let me tell you that whatever you are doing now is exactly what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, I agree.
So the problem comes when you are seeking, you know, when you keep seeking the purpose, when you search and you feel like you need to know, and because a lot of the time you can't know. And I think I probably said this last time, that you won't even know until you die, maybe not even then, that you've lived your purpose. But you will live your purpose just like you know, just think of it like it's like our natural way of being, it's a natural thing. It's not even an instinct. It's just natural. Just like we take a breath every day, living our purpose is natural. And it's something that you don't even need to think about. It's what we're put on this earth for. I mean, why else would we be here but to live our purpose? So when we're trying to live our purpose, that's like you're getting in the own way of living your purpose, because you're trying too hard. Trying is not a part of the purpose at all, because you are meant to live. You're here to live. Don't forget. So if you're here to live, then you will live your purpose.
And there are, I hear what you're saying, because when I speak to people, there's kind of these two camps I kind of broadly categorise them in two camps. Those that just quite frankly don't give a shit and just kind of do whatever they want. It's like, you know, they're pretty chill about stuff. And then there's another group that are kind of constantly wondering and talking about, and just maybe not happy with where they are, or maybe not happy with how things have played out, or the impact that they're making or not making, or the difference that they're making or not making. And they're constantly kind of wondering why. Yes, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's kind of, in my limited observations, is kind of... But then again, that's me judging other people, and that's my opinion of of them and what they're doing, what they're thinking.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, everybody has their own things, their own, beliefs and the way they live and whatever, and everyone's so different. But I want to do an exercise with you, and just, and all the listeners as well, if you're not driving or anything, let's do this exercise. Try and...
This was not planned. What is this?
No, I just got this idea.
Okay.
So going back to the ultimate investment of your energy, I want you to close your eyes wherever you are. This is only going to take 2 minutes. Yeah. And I want you to imagine yourself as your essence. Even if you can't even picture it, just imagine it. Imagine you as just your essence, as your full power, your full energy, all there, all intact together. You're not giving yourself away to anything. You're not attached to anything. You're just free. And you're just floating there above the world. And I want you to, from that place, look at your life. I want you to connect to what really matters. What's really important. Just have a look at, while you're there, what you need to let go of. What is in your life that is influencing you? What are you allowing to influence you? What are you giving your energy to? Who are you allowing to influence you? I mean, even the word influencers on social media, it's like they're already influencing you, so let it go. They have nothing to do with you. So I want you to just decide right now, consciously decide, that you're no longer going to allow these things to influence you, and you're not going to give your power or energy to anything or anyone else from this moment forward. Release all of those burdens and obligations and just be free. And from this place of freedom, look at life. Look at how beautiful life is. Look at how life is just going to play out for you. You don't need to be involved. You don't need to be the one making all the decisions. It just happens. Just like you're given this breath and you're given life. Everything you ever need will be given. You can stay here if you wish, but if you want to, you can take a deep breath in and then breathe it out, letting go of anything that doesn't serve you, and then come back and open your eyes. How'd you feel?
You said something that reminded me of conversations I've had with people, or you hear people saying, and people say, I want to live my life on my terms. You hear people say that? I want to live my life and do what I want when I want. More often than not, though, my belief is that a lot of us place like a monetary thing on that. And what I mean by that is I want to be there, I want to be here, which is doing what I want when I want, kind of live life on my terms, this concept. But I can't do it until I have this much money, because then I can go do all these things that I want to be able to do. Meanwhile, they're being governed by, this external thing, which is I put myself under pressure. And when I say people, I'm including myself here, is I want to do these things, but then I can't do those things until I reach this point. And what I'm not doing from now till that point is living my life on my terms and doing the things that I want to be able to do, because I'm doing things that are, in my in my point of view, for the greater good, but you go through this process of not being able to do the things you want to be able to do for the benefit of it happening later on in the future. You kind of pay this price now, but then reap the rewards later on. I don't know what you think about that, but that's something that came to mind, that when we try and live our life like on our terms, whether it be money related or otherwise, we're actually not, because we're doing all these other things that we probably otherwise wouldn't want to be doing or don't want to be doing, but yet we do them because our eyes are set on the bigger prize, so to speak, which is 5 or 10 years down the track once you, I don't know, build a company and it's valued at a certain price and you sell it and hooray, you're exited and, I don't know, you've got money in the bank or whatever the case may be. But I also think, I was just thinking about, and what sort of came to me was this constant doing things for other people. And even though sometimes you think I wouldn't do that, like, why am I doing this thing? And just sort of reflecting on it, it's like almost laughable that if you saw someone else doing these things that you or I do, you pinpoint and you go, mate, it's totally ridiculous. Why are you doing that? But you're still doing some of those things. So that was just really obvious to me. Yeah, most of them are probably, the other things are probably derivatives of those.
Mm. Yeah, and where do you think that comes from in you?
What's that?
The doing all of these things to get somewhere to...
I don't know, pleasing people is like a massive one for me. And you know this, for years, I've tried to please people and you kind of try and bend over backward to do this thing or that thing, or you forego something for someone else. But, you know, a lot of the times you realise, and I've even realised this, after the fact, when you reflect on like a situation, you think, that's the most insane thing. Like, why do I allow myself to do those things? But then when you're in that situation again, you're right in the thick of it, and you do these things subconsciously. You don't realise you're doing it.
Yeah, and it's part of our conditioning. It's it's how we grew up. It's all the beliefs that we've carried, even from our parents or their parents, generations upon generations of stuff. And it's time to break out of it. It's like, even for me, giving up my job as an osteo was one of the hardest things, because my family conditioning is to be successful and to be able to have an income for myself and to, be comfortable, but I was giving that all away. So in order to find happiness and peace and freedom, sometimes you just need to break out of the mold that you have created for yourself, but also someone else has created for you, that society has created for you, and be okay with being different. Because we all want to be accepted and we all want to connect. We all want to belong. But the thing that we want to belong to and feel accepted by is something that is purely on a physical level. Whereas if we look in our hearts, in the essence of ourselves, we know that we are accepted. We know that we are loved. And we don't need anything on the outside to make us feel that way.
One of the things you said before, and you said something about breathing or breath, and then life kind of happens, and we think we can control our lives. That's the other thing. I want to control my life, and I want to regain the power. We want those things too, right? I don't know to what extent you can control your life. What that means, I don't know. I think it's controlling. I don't know what you think, but I think it's like this. It's based and driven by fear of you not getting something that maybe that you want or don't want, and so you trying to control this thing. I don't know. Did you talk about that before, about setting goals? And so trying to control that holiday or control a trip, or control where your kids go to school, or control the car. And I think there's that aspect of it. It's a fear of not having that, so I want to try and control it as much as I can. It's like when we go bowling, and I put the bumper bars when the kids go bowling, because I want to control them not getting gutter balls, and so they can, I don't know, at least the ball can go as far down the laneway as possible. And someone asked this question, which they said, I think you were there. Is your breath taken, or is it given to you?
I think I asked you that question.
No, but no, it was somewhere else.
Oh, was it?
It was someone else.
That is so.
No,
fun.
I think you asked me. No, I think we were both there.
I'm pretty sure that I.
Okay, so what do you think about that?
But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, the breath can be taken from you at any point. You're not. The next moment is not guaranteed. This building could fall down now. Everything is given to us. Everything is a gift.
And so I was just thinking about that, because before, when you said you don't think about breathing, you just breathe, and you let life happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Yeah, I can see the distinction between this oxygen and this breath. That no, we are not taking this breath. This breath and this oxygen is given to us. And so if we think about, I mean, where do you draw the line? Do you then just sort of just give up everything and say, well, life will happen, life will take its course? Like, or is that an extreme, or is that not an extreme?
Is it an extreme?
I don't know.
So all of these burdens, all of these things that you want to do, all of these things that you're striving for, imagine you just one day letting all of that go, just letting all of that go. And you just realise that...
So letting go of the beliefs?
Letting go of all the things that you want to do,
all of
the things that you want to achieve. Letting all of that go and stripping that all away, what's left?
What's left? Just you.
Yeah. We spend our whole life living life. We don't know who we are. We think we know. We've got these attributes, we've got these personalities, but what is that personality based on? It's based on your experience of what will make you a good person, or what you perceive yourself to be. So, you go further and further away from who you really are at your core. So the journey really is to find out, well, if this part of myself, if the false self doesn't want these things, it's... How
do you identify your false self?
Well, it's actually first connecting to that true essence within us, which is through that meditation of, this is you, your light, your essence.
It's interesting you say that, like, even when you're talking through that and I was doing it, like, you just feel so much lighter, and then all of the things that you're looking for answers to are just like, but
yeah.
Literally just right there, and you know what the answer is.
I do.
But
yes.
why can't we believe that? Why? And I do this all the time. I know what the answer is, but I'm like, no, that's not right. I'm not going to do that, because I have to do these things, and then that'll...
Yeah, but you'll end up there anyway. That's the thing. You can end up there just like that, or you can end up there in a roundabout, massive way. Okay,
so why do I do that? Why do I do the roundabout, massive way?
Well, the society is driven by our mind. So at the moment, you're living through the mind, where you have to plan and you have to, you're
overthinking things.
You're overthinking
right.
it. You're going around in circles. You have to protect yourself and do all these things. Like, just in case this happens, I've got to do this and blah, 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 blah. Whereas if you strip all of those layers away and you go back to your core, none of that stuff really matters. You let go of all of it, and then you're like, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I know it sounds so airy-fairy, and it sounds like a hippie, and, it sounds like one of those people who would move to the mountains, sell everything and move to the mountains. But that is the essence of life. And you don't have to go and sell everything and move to the mountains. But it's like, just go to your true self. Just be yourself. And be yourself unapologetically. Because sometimes if you're yourself, you make other people upset. And that's great, because that helps them change too.
I was going to say, why is that great?
It's like, so many of us have this fear of, upsetting other people, and you're a people pleaser. So it's like, if you upset someone, like, oh my God, especially someone who's close to you, that 100%. Is quite devastating.
I dwell on it until I feel like it's resolved. But then again, I know that's me and my feeling until I feel like it's resolved to my satisfaction. Then I can, but I don't know, far out. Like, that's just how I am.
Exactly, that's just how you are. But it's great to realise it. So that's not who you really are, though. Who you really are is this essence inside you that has nothing to do, it doesn't have any thoughts. It just is.
Yeah, I'm getting that. And even when planning for things and thinking through, whether you're hiring people or firing people or making a business decision or a life decision, we do think about, and well, what if that happens? And I'm just thinking through, we're hiring someone, and I'm just even thinking with this person, what if this thing that we talked about didn't happen, and I've got to protect myself and make sure that we don't lose money there, and this, or what can they do for that? And I guess it's really doubting whether this is the right thing to do. And when sometimes you meet people or something happens and you just in your gut you're like, that's it. Unquestionably in your mind that's the thing. I don't know whether it's like, a house you see or a staff member you hire, or I've hired people that I've met once. I've hired people that I've met once in a half an hour Zoom meeting during COVID. It's like, and then, check references. I'm like, what am I checking references for? You're gonna give me references to people that are going to tell me something positive about you, like. And so it's just questioning our own instincts almost, that we don't allow those answers to come up and we doubt and question and think about why it's wrong, not think about the reasons why it might be right.
When you know. That's it. It's a knowing. And that's the thing. If you know something in your gut and it's meant to happen, it will happen. It will just happen.
That's so interesting.
You don't need to do anything.
I was talking to someone last week and we're talking about selling like this property, right? And they were saying, is that the right thing to do? Like, should we sell the property? And I remember, I don't know why I asked them this question, because I just felt like they knew. I said, Debbie, you know what the answer is to that question. You don't need me to answer that. I think the real question you're asking is blah, 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 blah. And then they turned around and they said, there was just this pause, and they just looked up at me and they said, you're 100% right. And it was almost like they were seeking my professional, not professional opinion, but professional...
validation.
Yeah, or authority or leave pass to go, you know what, you do it. And I could have told them what I thought, but the real question is, well, what do you think? And instead of trying too hard to look into things, because even if we didn't do that, if we didn't sell it, in this example, no doubt that they know that they need to sell it and they want to sell this place, right? That would have come up again in 6 months' time or in 12 months' time, because we haven't satisfied that. It's still this dark cloud that's just looming, right? And we've just kicked the can down the road, so to speak, and we would deal with it in 6 months' time. And even for myself, just thinking about it is hard to try and come up with these answers because we want the answer now, we want it right now. But giving ourselves the space and the time and the energy to really let the answers come to us. And I think we talked about this last time. Like I remember saying, and even now, like even still, when I go to sleep, things come to me, and you know, when you're really, your mind is uncluttered and really free. And to your point before about when people get to a certain time in their lives that they are uncomfortable or fearful because they're somewhere that they may not have been for the last 40 years, and there's just a lot of there has been a lot of clutter, and all of a sudden now it's just decluttered. And that is, it can be boring at times because you're like, well, what's happening? Nothing's happening. And I guess that's a clear sign that you haven't let go yet, because you're still kind of constantly searching and you're trying to look for something and grab something. And I don't know, then does the answer not come to you because you haven't given up? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Because the mind is still going.
The mind's still going.
You've got to stop the mind. So the mind is still going. So there's no space.
And so what advice would you give to people to be able to clear their mind and unclutter their mind and give themselves space when all we do is just close your eyes for a minute and your mind's still ticking? Just because you close your eyes doesn't mean your mind stops working.
Just breathe.
We do that. But we do that unconsciously. We breathe.
Consciously breathe.
Consciously breathe.
You can close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. Just breathe. You can breathe. There's so many different methods. You can count to a count of 6, breathing in, and then count of 4, breathing out. You can do like 4 in, 4 out. You can even just notice the feeling of the breath coming in. You can notice, the thoughts that come in and just follow them along, and that's okay too.
Is that a distraction?
No, because we put so much pressure on ourselves, and we're like, well, I'm going in to now meditate, and I'm just going to not think. And that is so much pressure. You can't not think, especially when you're trying not to think. When you're trying to do something, that's when you overthink it. So you just need to focus on breath. Whenever we focus on breath, you can't possibly think because you're only focusing on your breath.
But my question still remains, are we not distracting ourselves? Or is that...
From what?
From thinking. Like, are we actively distracting ourselves?
To find the answer.
To not think.
Yeah.
And that's okay, to distract ourselves.
Of course. It's okay.
Like if I go for a run or go for a bike ride, there's a lot of breathing going on, obviously. But I don't know, I never think about stuff. It's weird. I come to think of it now, I never think about stuff. Or even if I go to the gym, I'm not actively thinking about stuff because I'm focused on maybe what I'm doing. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but more often than not, my mind is bloody clear. Bike ride, run, gym. They're probably the 3 activities that I can think of off the top of my head that my mind is just clear.
Yeah.
Super clear.
Yeah.
Insanely clear where that just stuff comes to you like, oh crap, how do I remember this thing?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, going into the breathing is a distraction. I think life is a distraction. I think when you're in life and the kids are around and you've got stuff to do and you've got phone ringing and emails to reply to, that's distraction. It's vice versa. You need to get away sometimes to find that peace and space to get the answers that you need.
So the ultimate investment is, yes, it's kind of cliche, but it is in ourselves, but it's in ourselves in a slightly different way.
Yes. But what a really good practice for the people who are listening is to write down, spend some time reflecting on what is influencing you. What are you allowing to influence you? Who are you allowing to influence you?
Oh yeah, you were asking that
and
before.
Write down a massive list. It's gonna if it's shorter than 3 pages, I'd be very surprised. You're lying to yourself.
No one influences me.
Well, you'd be lying to yourself.
I am my own boss.
Yes.
Classic.
Yeah, but think about your employees. Think about your family.
100%.
How are they influencing you?
Yeah, but influence is not necessarily a bad thing. Is that right? You can influence someone in a positive way. You can influence someone in a negative way.
Why would you want to influence anyone? When you don't really know who you are yourself and you don't know how to live yourself, why would you want to influence somebody to live the way that you've been living? Like you and I, we've talked about this recently, where we just want to get out of the way of our kids because we don't know. Who are we to try and control who they are and what they turn out to be like when they are so pure and so perfect as they are?
That's really interesting. this concept of trying to make sure our kids don't, turn out in a certain way. Don't let them think that money is easy, or let them work hard for money. I've just been thinking about that.
That's the other legacy that you can leave your kids, all your own conditioning and all your beliefs. So I work so much with myself and other people, seeing all the beliefs that your parents leave you. And we, as parents, need to be aware of this and be aware of what are we projecting onto our kids that doesn't serve them, or anything really. What are we projecting onto our kids? Because as we spoke about at the start, babies and children, they are pure and they are perfect. They have their essence already. So we don't need to do anything with that. All we need to do is teach them how to go about the world, how to walk, and teach them how to hold a spoon and things like that. But everything else, they know it. Just like you know it in your heart.
Know what? Just whatever I need to know.
Everything, yes.
Right. Do you want to talk about anything else, or should we wrap it up?
Yeah, you can wrap it up.
All right, let's do it. Thanks.